I'd like to share with you a little bit today about what caused me to believe that we live in a geocentric level Earth system. So first of all, this started off for me probably about 10 years ago, and my very first flat Earth video that I watched was by Math Powerland. And it was of him doing a comedy routine, some stand-up comedy, and he was talking about the Earth being level and that he had been a NASA artist who would work on the art that they would use to depict the round Earth. And he pointed out some things that caused me to really think about what he was saying. He pointed out that airplanes get up to a certain altitude and then they just stay there, never having to tip the nose down to compensate for going around the relatively small ball Earth that we supposedly live on. So that really made me think. And then he pointed out that along those same lines, that when you're up in that airplane, if you look out the window, the horizon is out in front of you. And the horizon should actually be under you and down, and you're looking down at it. No matter what, like if you're on a ball and you come up, the horizon is going to sink down. But no matter how high up you go, 40,000 feet, the horizon is still meeting your eye level. So that made me think a lot as well. So then after Math Powerland, I really had to find some more academic teachings on flat Earth, the geocentric stationary Earth plane. And so I eventually graduated to, Eric Dubé and Santos Bonacci and some other teachers, Professor Dave, allegedly Dave, and some others that I'm probably blanking out on right now. But, if you've studied the flat Earth, you know that once you look at the evidence and you actually trust your own senses and your own intelligence, that it is hard to continue thinking that we live on a spherical ball planet with water clinging to it that is just careening through a strange, inexplicable, empty space that we call space, while this sun also bullets through the cosmos. It's just the story that we're fed becomes ludicrous and really, honestly, sick. I have a book called Graven Image, and I'm so blanking on the pastor's name that wrote this book. I'm so sorry, Pastor. Hopefully I'll think of it soon. But I subscribe to him on YouTube too. He does a morning broadcast. Graven Image. It took me a little while to understand why the ball Earth is in fact a graven image, and I'm not even a Christian. I'm not a Christian flat earther, okay? I am a yogini. My religion is yoga. I am a devotee of yogic philosophy and its scriptures and its practices. And just so happens in our scriptures, and I'll get into this a little bit more briefly, in the yogic scriptures, specifically the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find a description of not just the earth is just a little part of it. We are given a description of the entire layout of the creation and the various levels, what they're made of, how far apart they are, what is in between them, the various dimensional disk levels that are like stacked one up on top of the other. And the God that is at the very top of this creation. So I know the Christians and the Jews, they want to believe that it's this God from the Old Testament that is the supreme Lord, but I don't think so. I think that the cult of NASA And the cult of the Freemasons are really trying to hide Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna, who is, from my research, my intuition, my meditations, and just my connection with the divine, that's my best guess, is that the actual supreme person, the supreme Godhead, is actually Lord Krishna. And that's really what they're trying to hide from us. It might appear as if they're trying to hide biblical truths, and yes, they are trying to hide biblical truth, but there's an even bigger truth beyond the Hebrew Jewish superstition. There's a bigger superstition, and it's more incredible and just more developed and based in a deeper, more detailed truth. And we're interested in details. Flat earthers are generally interested in details, and they're very logical, scrutinizing, discerning people in general. They get a bad name and they get ridiculed, but honestly, many of the flat earthers that I know are some of the smartest people that I know, and the most balanced mentally. So there are so many endless reasons that we can cite to conclude, to discern that the earth is level and that it is, in the center of something, and that it is the sky and the stars and the moon and the sun that are moving. So one of the things also that was pointed out to me at the very beginning, especially when I started becoming a student of Eric Dubay, whose book I actually have right here, and I'm going to be reading a passage from Eric's book. The passage is actually from another book that I'm recommending. This one, if you can see it, Zetetic Astronomy, Earth is Not a Globe. And that is by Samuel Robotham. Sorry. But anyway, there's a passage from this book in Eric's book, and so that's what I'm going to read. But once I became a student of Eric Dubay, it was pointed out to me very quickly, and it became very obvious once again that we are in a stationary situation, and that it is the sky and the luminaries that are moving. We see the same stars in the sky every single year. We see the same display of celestial movement. The stars take the same path every single day, month, year. It's the same thing. So what NASA would have you believe, what science would have you believe, what Neil deGrasse Tyson would have you believe, is that we are so far away from those stars that you can see with your naked eye, twinkling in the sky above you every single night. What they will have you to believe is that you are so incomprehensibly far away from those stars that after thousands and thousands of years of celestial record, of human beings recording the movement of the stars, there hasn't been one change. Look at the ancient ruins and ancient temples where during, at the solstice, the morning of the sun rising, the sun will rise right through, a portion of this temple, or right above a spire of the temple on the exact day. And this temple was built thousands of years ago, and it does the same thing every year to this day. Do you really think that we could possibly be so far away from these celestial, every single one of them, and they're all moving in exactly the same pace so as to be seen in exactly the same way every single year? It's impossible. And if you continue to believe that, you are being very stubborn and very, very blind and willful. That's impossible. It's impossible that we would be that far away, that there would be absolutely no change in where the sun rises and where the moon rises and in where those stars are every single night. thousands and thousands of years of recorded star movement. Star trails. So, people will still actually bring up boats going over the horizon. And then you take a pair of binoculars or a telescope or a good camera and zoom in, and there's the boat again. What happened to the horizon? It's the way that our eyes see. Our eyes are designed to see a certain way. We can't see just endlessly, and our eyes are designed to bring things to a point. But when we get out these devices that help us see further, then we see that we were wrong about that horizon. Not to mention, how could the horizon, how could the earth be so small that you can see a boat going over the curve, but you cannot see a whole bunch of curve when you're 40,000 feet in the sky? How can it be at once so small that you can see the boat go over the horizon, yet so big and vast that 40,000 feet up, you can't see a dang bit of curve? It's ridiculous. It just becomes ridiculous. It really does. So anyway, let me read to you from Eric Dubé's Flat Earth Conspiracy. This is like the very last page, almost. 245. Sorry about this guy's name, Robotham. I have a hard time saying that name. I don't know why. Dr. Samuel Robotham from Zetetic Astronomy. Earth is not a globe. Okay, so here's what he says. It is geometrically demonstrable that all the visible luminaries in the firmament are within a distance of a few thousand miles from Earth, not more than the space which stretches between the North Pole and the Cape of Good Hope. And the principle of measurement, that of plane triangulation with, invariably, an accurately measured baseline, which demonstrates this important fact, is one which no mathematician claiming to be a master in the science will for a moment deny. All these luminaries, then, and the sun itself, being so near to us, cannot be other than very small as compared to the earth we inhabit. The sun is smaller than the earth. Come on, it is. You can see it. They are all in motion over the earth, which is alone immovable, and therefore they cannot be anything more than secondary and subservient structures continually ministering to this fixed world and its inhabitants. That's a beautiful thought, that the sun and the moon and the stars are ministering to this world. This is a plain, simple, and in every respect demonstrable philosophy, agreeing with the evidence of our senses, borne out by every fairly instituted experiment, and never requiring a violation of those principles of investigation which the human mind has ever recognized and depended on in its everyday life. The modern or Newtonian astronomy has none of these characteristics. This whole system taken together constitutes a most monstrosity, a most monstrous absurdity. I like that sentence. The whole system taken together constitutes a most monstrous absurdity. For real. It is false in its foundation, irregular, unfair, and illogical in its details, and in its conclusions, inconsistent and contradictory. Worse than all, it is a prolific source of irreligion and atheism. It promotes atheism, this NASA crap about this empty space and the Big Bang and evolution and stuff. It promotes atheism, which is exactly what they want. They don't want you to know how special you are. And if you want to ask me why would they lie, I'll tell you after I'm done with this. Worse than all, it is a prolific source of irreligion and of atheism, of which its advocates are practically supporters. By defending a system which is directly opposed to that which is taught in connection with the Jewish and Christian religion, they lead the more critical and daring intellects to question and deride the cosmogony and general philosophy contained in the sacred books. This says, yes, okay, so Robotham is saying the Jewish and Christian religion. Fine, yes, but also I think beyond that, and in a more deep way and in a more important, overwhelming, overarching way. I think that they're hiding the Srimad Bhagavatam and Lord Krishna. Because the Newtonian theory is held to be true, they are led to reject the scriptures altogether, to ignore the worship, and doubt and deny the existence of a creator and supreme ruler of the world. Why? Really? It's amazing that anybody would have to ask that question in this day and age. Why would secret societies like the Freemasons, the Jesuits, and the Zionists, why would they want the people of the world to not believe in a creator being or in a structured, orderly universe, a system that is already structured and orderly in and of itself? Why would they want the people, the masses, to believe themselves to be a random chance event? Not special, not children of a higher power with spiritual potentials to maybe move up into higher dimensional formats, higher dimensional environments. On a really deep level, even spiritually, there is an agenda to keep us here in this dimension. This dimension feeds it in and of itself. The matrix is not your government. The matrix is not ultimately the secret societies and the control mechanism of our society. It is nature itself. The matrix is nature herself. And it is all already set up. And this happens to be a dimension where we find corruption and violence, war, and suffering to be supported by nature itself. And if you look into like the Hindu hell realms, the Buddhist hell realms, and places like that, there are places that are much worse than this, that support different types of activities, horrendous activities, the further down you go. And then the further up you go above this plane, we've got higher forms of behavior and less trauma as we go up. And then we find at the top of this creation, the Krishna Loka, the abode of the Supreme Person, that they really don't want you to know about. This is my belief. If we really, really understood what we're dealing with here, not just this one dimension, it's just mind-blowing. And those records are kept in the Hindu scriptural text called the Srimad Bhagavatam. The whole numbers, the math, it's all laid out in the Bhagavatam. So anyway, I see it everywhere now. I see it in the way that the sun shines its rays on the earth. The sun couldn't shine its rays on the earth going out in all of these directions if the earth was this little tiny thing and the sun is this big giant fireball. It would be firing piercing, rays right at the earth. But that's not what's happening. We see the sun in the sky close to us, and we see it showering these rays of substance, of life force on the earth. It's right there, and the moon is right there. The stars are right up there. They're not far, far away. And there's a reason that we see the same ones every single night. They are part of our lives. They are the luminaries. It's a beautiful thing in the Jewish Bible that it says that God named every one of those. Every one of those stars has a name. Every one of them is an entity, and every one of them has an influence on us. That's what all of astrology is. There is no astrology without a geocentric, immovable, plane Earth. And all of those luminaries above us are part of who we are and why we are. Part of our karma, part of our experience, part of something that we're supposed to learn about. We should all be looking up inside of our own psyches. We need to be looking up into those higher dimensions of our own psyche, into the higher chakras, but also physically, mentally, spiritually. We are also looking up. Up is where we want to go, higher up into these levels of dimensions. So anyway, I'm going to stop. I don't have to fit everything into one video, but I would recommend both of these books. These are both highly educational books for us to learn from as we re-educate ourselves and we learn about our beautiful planet. Thanks for listening.